Hey y'all, from Spindle Mountain Mercantile. I am Heather. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Project number 1. Today I am sharing redos of items from my booth that have not sold for a very long time. I'm starting with this drawer I turned into a wall hanging. It has all kinds of different uses, and I thought it was super clever. Guess who did not think it was clever? The people who frequent my booth. No one bought it, and I even marked it down to $19. I removed the handle, gave it a good cleaning, and made sure that rose that's in there was smooth enough to add paint over the top. And that's what I started next. I found this paint at Tractor Supply. It's called Front Door by Rust-Oleum. This color is something like midnight blue, and that's a lie. There's about as much blue in this paint as my sweet husband has in his brown eyes. None. It's black. If that's blue, then I'm blue too, and I'm not blue. I'm happy. I started by painting all of the corners and crevices, and then I gave it one good coat and let it dry, and I gave it a second coat and let that dry overnight. With that fabulous golden handle, how could I not use a transfer from IOD's book, Curated Signage? This book has 4 gold gilded signs that are designed from old world styles. 3 of the signs are portrait and 1 is landscape. And of course, that's the one I used, and it's the cutest. It has this wonderful little fox on it. The most important thing to remember when you're using transfers is to make sure the surface is completely dry. I cannot stress that enough. When I had the transfer exactly where I wanted it, I rubbed the entire thing with my hand to give it just a little bit of initial stick. Then I took out my transfer stick, and one of these comes in every IOD transfer book, and I started rubbing different places on one end of the transfer. I did all of one side, and then I pulled it back a little bit, and I kept doing that until I got to this point. I didn't want to show you all of that because it gets really boring. This took quite a while. When you're using the gold gild transfers, they're just a little bit different than the regular transfers. The gold around the picture can be a little finicky, and if you put too much pressure, like in a corner of that transfer stick, it will take some of that gold off. And you can see a few places on this where I made that mistake. It's okay though, it makes it look more old world, and I really like that look. That said, I did go back later and touch up with paint just a few places I thought I got too much of the gold out of place. I also put the transfer back over and redid some places where I missed some of the gold. To avoid that, as you're pulling the transfer back, kind of squat down where you can see the light coming through the transfer, and you can see if there's any gold left in the places where the picture was supposed to come off. If you did miss any of the places, just simply lay your transfer back down and rub it again. Another way to avoid getting the wrong gold off of the transfer is to make sure you keep your transfer stick completely flat. When I'm doing other transfers that aren't gilded, like especially flowers and things with lots of little bits and pieces, I'll sometimes use the corner, but you don't want to do that with the gold gilded ones. You want to keep the pressure spread out all the way across the flat edge. Make sure you use a gloss sealer over the gold gilded, because if you use a matte, you'll lose some of the shimmer. When I was done, I let it dry and I added a second coat of sealer because, this might be something someone will keep in their bathroom or kitchen with a towel on it. I reattached the handle and that was it. I transformed this thing beyond what I even thought it would be. I wasn't sure I would like this. I really liked what I made the first time, but I think this one is going to sell pretty fast. And you know what? I'm going to raise the price. I'm going to put $29 on this. I'll let you know how quickly it goes. In the meantime, tell me what you think about how cute it turned out. Project number 2. Okay, try not to be too jealous, but Heather from Create Your Own Cozy is an IRL friend of mine. How awesome is that? A couple of weeks ago, she was sharing with some of us how to do a video, and she was redoing this little crock that she's called Fuzzy. It's because she had painted it with baking soda and paint mixed together and hadn't sealed it correctly. I was like, oh my goodness, I have candlesticks that I believe I was inspired from that original video. I had taken them out of my booth quite a while ago because they didn't sell. I'm so glad I did because guess what? These were fuzzy too. My sweet husband took them outside and removed all the extra fuzz and got them smooth enough to apply molds. So I'm using the Christmas Tapers mold and I'm applying them with Titebond. Now the best clay in the whole world is air dry clay made by Iron Orchid Designs, but I have just a little bit left of this bulk clay that we bought thinking we were saving money when we first started doing this. Turned out to be not so good. This clay is made for throwing stuff like on a wheel where you make pottery. It's not made for using in these molds. So it gets really cracky. Well, I wanted that. I wanted these to look old, like they had been sitting outside and were made of cement that's kind of fallen apart. So I used up the very last bit of my great big ginormous box. I think it was, I don't know, 10 pounds of clay that we bought on Amazon. I did run out during this, so I had to make 2 of these, I call them icicles, with the air dry clay by IOD, and they look so much better than the other ones. I had to kind of take a little chisel and just kind of break it so it would match the rest of them. I will leave you a link in the description for everything I bought from Amazon. And if you use my link to buy anything from Amazon, they will give me a small compensation, but won't raise your price. I do sell IOD in my booth, but I don't do mail order. If you want to order anything, though, you can go to Heather at createyourowncozy.com. She has a great supply of everything. You can also go to IOD's website and find a stockist near you if you want to shop in person. So that it won't break in half, when I make a long, narrow mold, I like to rub the clay between my fingers and get it to be one long piece. Right, so that's my habit. I'm used to doing that, and I did it this time, but I forgot when I was doing it, I want this to look old. So I actually broke a few of them in different places. I left a long piece, one continuous piece, but I just broke off some of the other little bits and pieces here and there. I did some before I put it on, and then some I did after I let it dry. I miscalculated how long these needed to be to fit on the candlestick, so I didn't put any clay in that top part you can see right there. I am so glad though I put the first two on right after I cast them because I realized I could keep that part. So I didn't recast them. I just added a little bit of clay into that part and then added that to the mold, and it worked out because remember I want them to look cracked, and it did. Now the rest of them I put the clay all through the whole entire taper, and that worked great. So here I am, and oh, I made 8 of them. And here I am putting the glue on. I use Titebond Quick and Thick, and I get it all over the whole thing, and then I spread it out with a brush. No matter the surface I'm applying molds to, I always put them on when they're wet. Now you have to do that when you're using them on a curved surface, else when you go to press them down, it's just going to break into a million little pieces of dust. Remember when you were a little kid and you used to look at the pictures in National Geographic and they had people walking across a bed of nails? You know how they do that? The nails are put together really closely so that when you step on them, the pressure from your foot is spread out over the tops of them, and it's almost like walking on something that's flat and not pointy at all. I know, I've done it. It's kind of like an illusion. So when you see me putting my whole entire palm over a mold, that's what I'm doing. I'm applying even pressure over the whole thing so it won't mush down the design. Once I have it all attached, the glue will kind of squish out a little bit, so I just take a paintbrush and clean that up. For the top and bottom parts of the candlestick, I'm using IOD's new mold called Trimmings 4. Normally, I would use one big piece of clay and stretch it out, but remember, I want this to look old and I want it to crack. So the more pieces of clay I use that just kind of, fit together and mush together as I make the mold, the more they're going to crack in those areas. When I took it out of the mold, I just laid it on the part of the candlestick where I wanted it to be, and then I used a screwdriver to cut off parts, and some of them I went around the flowers and fit them together like a puzzle, and in other parts, like around the bottom, I just cut a straight line. And where there were gaps, I just filled in the mold with a little bit of clay here and there. And I took those pieces out and I glued them in to fit into those gaps. Well, my regular viewers and subscribers should know by now that it wouldn't be a Made Fabulous by Heather video for YouTube if it wasn't full of mistakes. And here's what happened. I got totally into my craft and forgot what I was about. I didn't even think that the camera wasn't showing what I was working on. So here I am making the piece of clay for the top, and I left the candlestick where it is while I attached the top. So you don't get to see that part. I apologize. I did it just like I did the bottom though. It's just not quite as fanned out. After I was done with that, I got out my Felicity mold from IOD and started making lots of little roses. I don't know how many I made. I just made a whole bunch and I added them completely haphazardly around the top. I didn't fill in every space. I made it look like, if you had an old candlestick outside and the wind blew it over or whatever, rose would pop off. So it's just kind of random. It looks really cool. So bear with me, trust the process. Oh, but wait, there's more. Sigh? Oh my goodness. I still haven't realized the camera is up there and so is my work, so you can't see it. But there is one part where I held the candlestick down while I applied a rose. So you know what I did? I put it in super slow-mo. So you can see right there. See? You can see me attach a rose. That's what I did. Now just picture that like, I don't know, 23 more times. I did get some decent pictures before I spray painted the candlesticks, and here you can see how the roses aren't really put in any particular order. I just kind of stuck them on where they fit. I'm going to wet distress so the base needs to be sealed. That's why I'm using spray paint, and I'm starting with this dark bronze, and then I'll go back and add some of the metallic gold. What I did was put the bronze on almost every place except in between the tapers where I won't do much distressing, and then I went back and added gold in just some splotches. Now, I'm really sorry about the look of my porch. It's a little embarrassing. And I have a question. Who wants to see me do a video redoing my porch and getting it ready for summer? Anyone? Anyone? Let me know. Tell me in the comments. I'll do it. So a lot of people would probably practice before they do this, but I'm more of a learn by the seat of my pants kind of girl, so here we go. I got out my Debbie's Design Diary in 3 colors: letterpress gray, weathered wood, and faded burlap. Now I'm sure you can use a whole bunch of different colors. If you go on YouTube and type in faux cement or cement copycat, I'm sure you could find a lot of different ways to do this. Just remember, this is the very first time I've even tried this. So if you don't like it, please give me some grace. And if you do like it, yay! I waited overnight for everything to get super dry, and then I just took my fingernail and started like popping off little tiny pieces. So if there was a crack and it had a part sticking up, I just popped it right off. I did pop one big piece off that was a little too big, so I just took some glue and put it back on, and it worked just fine. Debbie's paints are highly pigmented, so I'm only using 1 coat on each entire candlestick. Now, you see me using this old dirty brush and dipping it right in my can. That's because that can is almost empty. You'll see the brush go all the way down inside and it barely gets any on it. You don't want to do this if your paint can has a good amount of paint in it or even a halfway decent adjacent amount of paint in it. You will contaminate your paint. Make sure you pour your paint into a cup or a little bowl and then use the brush to dip in that. I also sometimes use the lid if I only have to cover a small area. This is one of my mushy brushes. I have a lot of these. They're brushes I really don't care if they get what some people call ruined because I mush them down a lot and I can just keep reusing them. I don't think that's ruining it because I'm using it, right? Okay. So now that that's cleared up, I took some of the weathered wood and went along the icicle. I keep calling it icicle. It's really a taper. The taper molds, and I avoided the flat space in between the tapers. And then I went just kind of randomly over the floral on the top and the bottom part. I started in adding the faded burlap the same way on the top and bottom parts, but I didn't put it full coverage. So each layer has a little bit less paint. In between the tapers, I added quite a bit of faded burlap and made it extra thick in the middle. And then I took another one of my mushy brushes, my little one, and I started mushing around the edges. And I just traded back and forth with my mushy brushes because in between where the tapers have like that starburst, I needed a smaller brush. So if you know, this is just one of those things, I kind of messed with it as I went along. And in complete transparency, you can see in the background, I did the other taper first. Now I did it a little bit different, but not a whole lot. I followed everything the same until after this part. So I'll jump in when I'm done with this and I'll do some more splaining. Here's where things got different. With the first one, I started wet distressing it and the paint wasn't coming off like I'd hoped. I think that I used too much of the bronze and not enough of the gold for my liking. So I stopped wet distressing almost as soon as I started on that first one. And I got out my Debbie's liquid patina in the colors Pennies from Heaven and Golden Ticket. And I randomly added those all over everything except for the smooth surface in between the tapers. After that dried, I added Debbie's black wax to everything except that space between the tapers, and then I wiped it down, and that's how I got the look for the first one. It has more of the metallic colors showing than the one that I simply wet distressed, and I like them both. I think it just depends on what you want. I think you could actually combine both of these processes and have more of the metallic if you want. If you know you didn't get enough from wet distressing, just add some liquid patina and then dull it down with black wax, or maybe dark and decrepit liquid patina. I don't think there's a right way to do this. I think there's a way to do this to get what you want, and it's just kind of a fun process getting to that point. This is one of those things where I think the more mistakes you make, the better it's going to be, because those mistakes, again, are going to get you closer to what brings you joy and makes your heart happy. Sometimes I have a tendency to explain things to make them as clear as mud. So I'm just going to make sure you're picking up what I'm laying down. The one I'm working on right now is the second one I did. I sprayed it with metallic spray paint. Then I added 3 different colors of Debbie's Design Diary. Then I wiped it down with a damp towel so that I could wet distress it and the metallics would show through the Debbie's paint. Now I have black wax on it, and I put it everywhere except in between those tapers where I want the faded burlap to show, and I'm wiping it down with a very, very lightly damp towel. It's really wrung out. And in the middle where the tapers are, I only went up and down because I wanted it to look like rain had been falling over it like it would in nature. The first candlestick that I didn't show you how I did it because that would make this video way too long, I didn't need to put the spray paint on because I didn't wet distress, and I added the metallics later. After I added the metallics, I put the black wax over it and did the same thing that I'm showing you right now in this one. So I want you guys to tell me which one you like the best. Do you like the one that I wet distressed, or do you like the ones that I use these liquid patinas on? Tell me if you like the one on the left or the right. Also, I sell Debbie's, but I don't do mail order. If you want to buy something from Debbie and I get a little bit of credit, you can use a link that I'll provide in the description. Debbie will compensate me just a little bit and it won't raise your price at all. So which one do you like best? I think they're both awesome, but I'm going to let you guys choose. Project number 3. This one I had to get done pretty fast because you see those girls out there? Yeah, well, there's Rhodey the rooster. Watch him. Watch him. Oh, he says, get away from my girls. He does not like those girls being by me. And of course, they flocked around me the whole time I'm working on this project. I brought this dresser home from the shop. This is Christmas. This is either 2 Christmases ago or 3. You guys, I've had this in my booth for like 2 years. I finally took it out a few months ago. This is a different display. I, oh my goodness. It I marked it down all the way to $99, and I'm not going to go lower than that. So my mom and my aunt told me they think that this transfer is just a little too bold. So I'm toning it down with Debbie's black wax, and I love how it made the wood look. So I went ahead and did the entire bottom part, not the top, but all of the bottom. I also didn't do the mirror, which I'll show you later. But there's a part on the legs in the front where they're turned. Do you know what a turned leg is? It's a spindle. So they put it on a thing that turns it, and that's how they make a spindle. I did not do the spindle. I left that a lighter brown or natural wood. I did the sides and all of the leg parts, like in the back, they're just square, flat legs. And later, my sweet husband is going to make the top and the spindle part of the legs match. He can't do it right now, so you don't get to see that in the end result. You guys, my sweet husband almost went blind this week, and I'm not exaggerating at all. On Tuesday night, we were talking to our son on speakerphone, and he's like, hey, do you see all that? And I'm like, well, I see a lot of that. What that do you mean? And he said those sparkly things. And he described something that looked like lightning bugs in my house. And I'm like, honey, maybe we should take you to the hospital. It's kind of late at night. And he's like, nah, I'll be fine. I'll look into it tomorrow. So the next day he does his doom scrolling and finds out that he's going to die because he took aspirin. I don't know. It's like, oh, come on, honey. I said, you need to call the doctor. And he goes, nope, don't worry about it. I sent an email. So he uses the VA, gets 100% VA care, and they pay for him to go to community care too, so he can go to other doctors. Well, he then the next day, okay, so it's been 2 days now, right? And he thinks all these horrible things. He thinks maybe it's a medication. He doesn't even take that many medications. He doesn't know what it is. So next day, he tells me he's driving and he's like, I feel like there's dogs running next to us because there's so much darkness. And I said, listen, you are going to pick up the phone and use your mouth and make words to tell into another person's ear that you need to see a doctor. You're not going to do another email, okay? And he's like, okay, okay. They got him in the very next morning. We had to leave our house at 6:30. We drove an hour to Greenville and he went to the VA. They did all these tests, find out his retina is detaching, and all these things that he's seeing is because blood is pooling all over in his liquid in his eyeball. So they sent us down the street about a mile to a retina specialist, and that very morning, like within an hour, they did laser surgery on his eye and his retina. They said, if you don't do this right now, you could be blind before the end of the weekend in that eye. And when they did all these tests, they found out there was an old tear that's worse in his other eye, but for some reason it didn't detach. It was a horseshoe shape. So they did laser surgery on both of his eyes. And that, ladies and gentlemen, mostly ladies, is why we aren't going to see the finished complete project. I'm going to take pictures of it and show you how good it looked. It didn't make a huge difference, but I'll show you a picture that shows the wood before the black wax and the wood after the black wax. And you can see it is different if you compare the two. I think it will make enough difference that people will maybe want to buy it now. I'm not going to lower the price. In fact, I'm going to raise the price back up to 149 once he gets that top done. People like a big drastic difference. Like when you paint an old piece of furniture white, they like it to have a natural top. So I kind of did the opposite here. I'm doing the bottom, it will be really dark, and the top will be really light. And he's going to put a really high shine shellac on top of it, so it's going to be absolutely gorgeous. In another video, I'll try to remember to show you the after because he's really good at doing that. So I want you to remember this next picture when you watch the video. See how different that is? This is before I added the wax, but the sun was super bright when I was filming the video, so it still looks like that transfer is really bright. There's my little Rufus. Hi, Rufus. He had to come and say hello and do a little stretch. When you're watching this video, also remember my sweet husband, when he gets his eyeballs back to usage, he's going to refinish the top, and I think that will help. Another thing with low boys is they don't have a lot of storage, and that's what people want in their homes. So I need to up my staging game with this and make it look like something someone would put next to their bed. It's the perfect height on which you can put your book and your lamp and your glass of water, whatever you want, right next to your bedside. So I think I need to do that. What do you guys think? I think it's so pretty, and I hope this time someone else appreciates it as well. I sure do appreciate y'all joining me again. And if you are new around here, well, hey, y'all, to you too. I hope that you'll take a minute and subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell. Also, if you like this video, please consider giving me a thumbs up. Y'all leave the best comments, and I'm sorry I haven't gotten back to them this week, but you know, it's been a week. And I will answer them shortly. I hope you found some inspiration to change something maybe in your own home that you want to update, or something from your booth that hasn't been selling. And if you did, leave a comment and tell me about it. I'd love to hear your experiences. As always, y'all, I am so happy that you joined me, and I hope that until you see me next time, you have a wonderful week, and I hope you are blessed. Bye.